Unit 4, Part 3. So our three-step procedure for symbolizing English sentences is going to be 1. Identify and abbreviate the simple sentences. 2. Identify the major operator, symbolize that, put the components in their place, and then 3. Symbolize the components. Okay, so step 1 is identify and abbreviate the simple sentences. So recall from Unit 2 the distinction between simple and compound sentences. And what you'll think is simple sentences, those are the ones which are going to be abbreviated with simple capital letters. Right? The simple sentences in this one over here, Dan is Australian and Dan teaches logic. The simple sentences are going to be abbreviated with capital letters, right? They just get capital letters. So they're the atoms from which, right, they're the basic elements from which we're constructing complex, or our word compound, formulas, okay? So, yeah, and that's what simple are. Simple, just get the capital letters. Compound means complex, has form or structure, and that form or structure will be the elements, the simple sentences, combined through the sentential operators, or through our symbols, the dot for and, the wedge for or, the hook for if then, the tilde for not, and the triple bar for if and only if. Or words equivalent to that, like but or unless, as I mentioned, is the second big lesson of the chapter taught in section 3. But first of all, we have to recall, since the first step in the three-step procedure is identify and abbreviate the simple sentences. So recall the difference between simple and compound sentences. A simple sentence is one that is not compound. A compound sentence is a sentence which logically contains another sentence as a component. A sentence logically contains another sentence as a component, that is compound. If it either literally contains another sentence as a component or can be paraphrased such that its paraphrase does literally contain another sentence as a component. Okay? And the last definition you need is what it is for one sentence to contain another as a component, right? Example, Dan believes that 2 + 2 = 4. That sentence does contain another sentence as a component. The sentence 2 + 2 = 4, that is a component of Dan believes that 2 + 2 = 4. Why? Because I can take that sentence, 2 + 2 = 4, take it out, replace it with any other grammatical sentence, and the result is a grammatical sentence. Recall the text/lectures for Unit 2. We had examples where it didn't happen, where with phrases like worms have souls, that was not a component of a sentence because you couldn't substitute in 2 + 2 = 4 and get a grammatical sentence. Okay? A sentence is compound if it logically contains another sentence as a component. Two ways to satisfy logically containing. Here is an example of a compound sentence. Dan is Australian and Dan teaches logic. This sentence is compound. This sentence literally contains another sentence as a component, in fact, 2. Right? Namely, Dan is Australian, Dan teaches logic. Right? I could replace this with 2 + 2 = 4. I get 2 + 2 = 4. 2 + 2 = 4, and Dan teaches logic. Perfectly grammatical. Right? It's the components are sentences, things capable of being true or false. So is the resultant sentence, and so on. So that's an example of a sentence literally containing another sentence component. That way of being compound. These two ones are the stress, really, of section 1. Remembering, right, so she says, Klenk says, on 52, a simple sentence is just one that is not compound. A sentence that is, right. So the second sentence this is page 52 of section 1. Also keep in mind that most sentences with compound subjects and or predicates must be considered to be compound. Compound subjects and compound predicates. I've got an example of each up on the board here. Right? Since they are equivalent to expanded sentences, in which the simpler sentences are literally contained, right? And again, on page 53, she reiterates this down here. Focus in the italics. It is extremely important to remember that compound sentences with compound subjects and or predicates must be considered to be compound sentences and must be symbolized accordingly. Okay, so this is a sentence. Is it compound? Yes, it is, right? It is not true that it does not literally contain another sentence as a component, right? Ellen and 2 plus 2 equals 4, that's me attempting to replace, right, Michelle are taking logic, it reads. Ellen and Michelle are taking logic. Michelle are taking logic, not quite grammatical itself, that's one problem. Another is, Ellen and 2 plus 2 equals 4, what? What's Ellen doing? That is not a grammatical sentence, right? But, wrong to infer from the fact that this sentence does not literally contain another sentence as a component. Don't infer from that to it therefore isn't compound. Why not? Because there are 2 ways to contain another sentence as a component. This sentence can be paraphrased, right? And see now that how you have to be seeing the logical structure, right? You have to be able to look at this sentence and realize that it has the logical structure of a conjunction, right? That this and is going to articulate the form of the sentence, right? Ellen and Michelle are taking logic. That is paraphrased as the following. And what does paraphrase mean? Remember, paraphrase means A is paraphrased as B when A and B are both true in all the same worlds and both false in all the same worlds or situations. Okay? So remember, we had a failure of paraphrase, and we'll return to it in a second. Dan and Uchenna, my wife, Dan and Uchenna are married, is not correctly paraphrased as Dan is married and Uchenna is married. Why not? Because Dan is married and Uchenna is married can be true in a world where we're married to other people. In that world, the supposed paraphrased or the attempted paraphrase is true, but Dan and Uchenna are married is false, where my original meaning is that we're married to each other. Okay, so that says there is a world where the first is true and the second, or the first is false and the second is true, so they're not equivalent in meaning, they're not equivalent in logical meaning, so the second is not a paraphrase of the first, right? But this is Ellen and Michelle are taking logic is correctly paraphrased as what? Ellen is taking logic and Michelle is taking logic. And that sentence does literally contain those 2 simple sentences as component. Simple sentence, Ellen is taking logic. Simple sentence, Michelle is taking logic. Call that E and M. Those are the abbreviations. I'm not going to write the whole thing down, but read the book to see how she does it, how Klenk does it. Right? These capital letters are the abbreviations of the simple sentences, right? And the proper logical form, the proper symbolization of this sentence is just E dot M, right? So you have to read that as a conjunction, right? As the conjunction that articulates the overall form of the sentence, right? The logical form of this sentence is a conjunction, and that and is the major operator of the sentence, okay? Something similar with the and in this one. So this is an example of a compound subject, right? We've got Ellen and Michelle are taking logic. I've got two subjects, I've got the one predicate, and I'm saying the predicate holds of the first subject and the predicate holds of the second subject, right? So it's the predicate holds of the first subject, Ellen is taking logic, and the predicate holds of the second logic. That's the structural form of that sentence. Here is an example of a sentence with a compound predicate. Ellen is taking logic and algebra. That is correctly paraphrased as Ellen is taking logic and Ellen is taking algebra. And there we have the and, so that sentence literally contains other sentences. Sentence as it's an accurate paraphrase that does literally contain other sentences as component and is therefore compound. So it has structure, it has form. What structure, what form, right? There, in that sentence we can identify the simple sentences, which are going to be, let's call them E for Ellen is taking logic, A, Ellen is taking algebra, and of course the form is a conjunction again, E and A, right? But here's another sentence, Dan and Uchenna are married, right? The and there, it looks on the surface very much like the and here, but the and in Dan and Uchenna are married does not give you the logical form. It does not articulate a major operator, does not express a major operator of a compound sentence. Dan and Uchenna are married is it expressing a relation. We have to keep that relation as one thing as it is. So the translation, the proper translation of Dan and Uchenna are married is treated as a simple sentence. It is a simple sentence. It's not compound because it's not paraphrased correctly as Dan is married and Uchenna is married. It's not paraphrased as that, so the proper translation of that is whatever. One capital letter, M for married. You can pick any capital letter, but just one capital letter is the translation of Dan and Uchenna are married.